Hi, welcome to my channel. Once you finish the fuel stripping, now I'm going to show you how to disassemble the bolt and the fire control group, FCG. Let's start off with the bolt. What you need is a vise and a couple of sizes of punches. Okay. Now, take a good look at the firing pin. The firing pin is right here. Okay. And I'm moving it back and forth, and it's held in by this here. Let me point out. It's held in by this. It's a cotter pin through this hole. Okay, so what you really need is a punch that'll fit that hole. Alright, so that's what you need the vise for. Put that in, secure it in the vise. Make sure you use aluminum or copper to protect the bolt, and then lightly tap out the cotter pin. And there it is. And there is your cotter pin. Actually, it's not a cotter pin, it's your roll pin. Sorry, it's a roll pin. I always get that confused. It's a roll pin. Okay, now I'm just going to remove this. And here it is. Now I'm going to pull the punch out and slide the firing pin out. Now this is where the roll pin goes into. Okay. Okay, make sure it's not damaged, it's not too worn. Okay, so that's out. Now the next roll pin is for the extractor, and this is your extractor. It's under tension. Okay, now there it is right there. It's another roll pin. Now the one I use for the firing pin, and you punch it from the right to the left. It's too big. It won't. Actually, it just fit. So let's see if that works. Let's put that in the vise. Let's see if we can tap that out. Yes, it is coming out. The same. You need to have the exact. With roll pins, you have to have the exact size. Okay. Okay, once I actually pull the punch out, the extractor starts to move up. So in other words, you don't have to punch the cotter pin all the way out. Just leave it as far as this. Okay. And this is what the extractor looked like. Okay. Just leave that there. And there's also a spring right there. So let's see if I could move the spring out. I'll show you what the spring looks like, just in case you need to find a replacement. It's about 1/2 inch long, about 1/8 of an inch wide. So that's the extractor, that's the extractor spring. Here's a firing pin, and this is there's no spring for the firing pin, but there is a roll pin for that. And the roll pin for the extractor is right here. So that's basically your bolt disassembly. There's nothing more you can do. So next is the FCG. To disassemble the FCG, you need to remove it from the stock. Let's put that aside, and you turn it this direction. And what you need is a straight edge. Okay, you see this screw right here? You remove this plate. There's basically a plate which is about 5 inches long and about 1.25 inches high. You just remove this plate like this. Okay, it's a short screw, and I always very careful in pulling the plate up, and if I recall, hold the mag catch. Okay, and that's it. Here, take a good look. Here's a mag catch. Here's the mag catch spring. This is the ejector right here, the bronze color. And your trigger. And here's your hammer. And this is your safety here on the other side. And what happens when you put on safe, okay, right now it's fire position, and if you notice, if I'm going to put this safety lever, I'm going to move it back, which means putting on safe. This little piece moves and blocks the trigger from moving. Watch this. Watch this. See? Let's do it again. Watch this piece right here. Moving it back, and there it is. It's blocking the trigger from moving at all. From here on, you start disassembling the first I'm going to tackle the mag catch, and then I'm going to work on the hammer and the trigger. Okay, I'm going to have to turn this around, unfortunately, so I could see better what I'm doing. And it's just as simple as just pulling the mag catch straight up. Make sure that the spring doesn't jump out. Okay, just wiggle it, and there it is. Okay, that's the spring, and that's the mag catch. Okay, now I think you can actually remove the extractor, and the extractor just comes straight up, okay, like that. And now, as you can tell, the hammer is to the back, so there's some tension on the spring. I need to make sure that the tension is released, and the way I'm going to do it is to remove the spring first. Okay, and what I'm going to do is take a punch, and I'm going to make sure nothing jumps out. Take a close look. I'm just removing this spring off the trigger. Like that. And here it is. I just released the tension. Okay, it moved from there all the way over here. Can remove. There's still a little bit of, there was still a little bit of tension. Now I can move the trigger straight up. Now be careful with the trigger, because it has a pretty loose pin right there. Okay, see that pin? It's comes loose. And it's important because this pin holds on to the spring. It seemed to be magnetic for some reason. See? It seemed to be magnetic. Okay, so that is your trigger. And now I can remove the hammer. Okay. It's one coil, has two stems or two legs. Okay. So that's also, it has a pin, and there it is. And the longer side of the pin goes to the right. Okay, that goes in this way. Okay. Okay, now let's deal with the safety. Quite often you won't have to remove the safety, but you might have to if something is broke. So it's very simple. There's a C-clamper right there. You just pull the C-clamp out straight like this. Pretty simple. There's nothing too complicated about that one. And as soon as you do that, a ball and the lever and the C-clip falls out. Okay. And the ball goes in to this part where you can see right here. Let's see. I don't have a hook. I used to have a hook. See if I could. Oh, actually I could. There it is. See, there's a tiny spring. Just, it goes into this little hole right there. Here, let me show you this hole right there. And then it's followed by this, by this ball bearing. It goes in there. Okay. So let's put all the thing together there. And that's basically it. There's nothing more you could actually disassemble. So, you're all done. Actually, this is quite complicated. So what I'm going to do is reassemble them. Okay, if it's complicated, I'm going to have to reassemble them. Otherwise, you guys are going to get stuck. Okay, so let's start with everything reverse. Okay, the last thing that came out was the safety spring, which means it has to go back into this hole right here, the lower hole. So let me put that back in. Okay, followed by a ball. The ball sits right there. Okay, now you take the safety. This part goes in the downside. Okay, watch. It goes in. It depresses the ball. It sits on the ball. Press down on it. Now you see the shaft has come across. Now you're ready to put the C-clip back in. And now test it out. Yep, it works. Okay. There, that's pretty simple. Now, time to put the hammer back. Remember this pin? The longer part goes in. Okay, so you put it back on the hammer. And this is a good opportunity for you to start oiling the joints and everything, okay? Put that into this hole right here. Okay, that's the hammer hole. And that's where the pin goes in. The long side. And, okay, now that's in. Now what you do next, grab the spring. Okay, now you grab the spring and put it all the way here. Okay, and that's basically it. See how it goes? Like that. Just for now, this is where you want it. Okay, now you're ready to put the trigger in, and remember there's a pin and there's a couple of grooves on either side. That either side is for the spring. Okay, and that's where you put it in. and it goes into the hole, the furthest back. Okay, there's two holes. Okay, this is for the access pin, this is for the spring. Okay, and that goes in the back. Now you need to somehow put both the spring in. Okay, it's a little tricky, but that's what you have to do. Okay, so again, what I'm going to need to do is get a floss. Now, I have to go grab a floss and I'll be back. Okay, I got the dental floss and I have it on one of the spring legs. Leg, and it's the one on the right, okay, because that's kind of hidden, and I need to get that leg over onto this groove that's on the right side. Okay, now I'm gonna have to pull this spring. Okay, watch it. Okay, I'm ready to put the trigger access pin in, put the trigger in. Okay, I'm going to put this pin with two grooves for the spring. I'm going to slowly release, and I'm going to make sure it falls on. Yes, it's on that pin. I can sense it, and I can now release the floss. Okay, now yes, I can feel some tension, but now I need to pull that back out a bit. Okay, now I need to pull this pin back out a bit so I could put this spring on it. Okay, so let's see if I could pull that out. Okay, that's not working. Okay, I managed to pop the spring pin back out a bit by using a knife, and I push that spring, one of the legs, and it's now popped back out. So I need that one to be out a little bit, and the reason why is that is for this other leg, okay, the leg on the left side, and it rests on that. So now, yep, now it's good. All right, so everything seemed to be good. Now let's check. Yep, everything is good. And now I can actually put the ejector back in, and it goes in this position, and it just sits there, goes into that pin. Okay, and of course, last but not least, is the mag catch. And the mag catch has a spring that sits in the little groove over here. See that? That's where it goes, and it goes over the same pin that the ejector was, and that's how you're gonna push it back. Okay, so that's how it goes in. Okay, you might need to push the spring out of the way a bit. Yep, like that. Okay, so now everything is in position. Make sure the spring is seated properly. That's the mag catch. The ejector's in place properly. The two hammer spring is seated onto the trigger, one on each side, and the access pin is working, and the trigger access, the hammer access pin is in place. Now I'm all ready to put the left plate. Okay, let's see. And now this is a little tricky because see this hammer pin? It's supposed to come through this little hole that's right here, right beside the screw. So now that's going to be a little on the tricky side, so I'm just going to have to use a knife to coax it in position. Yep, like that. Yep, there it is. Phew! It's in, it's in. Okay, so that's how you disassemble and reassemble the FCG. Next, I'm going to reassemble the bolt. And I need a vise for that. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is put the extractor back in. If you remember, you have a spring, pretty tiny spring. Put that into the slot just in front of the charging handle hole, like that. And then put this hook downwards, okay, like this. And the hook should be in line with the face of the bolt. Okay, so like this. So basically push it as far as you can, okay, all the way back, and hold it and start tapping like that. Just to, yep, it's in place. Okay, now you can put it back in the vise, and now you could tap it all the way in. And when you're tapping it, make sure it goes below the circumference of the bolt. Okay. And I think I have reached there. Okay, make sure it's below the outside. Make sure it doesn't stick. Now test it. There should be some bounce in it, some pressure. Okay, so the extractor is all done. It's in place. Now you take the firing pin. Okay, now you know the firing pin. This is the back side. The big side is the front side. And the sharp, there's flat, and then the sharp. The sharp goes down. Okay, so if this is the top, it goes down like this. Okay, now make sure it's lined up with the front, the face of the bolt. Okay, now you can start putting this roll pin back in. Now remember, I punched it from the right to the left, so it goes back from the left back to the right. Okay, so make sure this is lined up. Now put it back in the bolt. Okay, I'm going to use that punch. I'm going to punch it in. Okay, now make sure when you punch the roll pin in, it should go below the circumference, the outside. And it has. Okay, I don't feel the pin. And now, yep, test out, make sure the firing pin is working fine. So that's all done. Okay. So that's basically it. When you put it back in, to test it out, put the 2 recoil spring, and then put the, now remember, this recoil rod, this cutout goes on the downside, okay? Here, I'm going to use a screwdriver, and I'm going to push the hammer back in. And this is how I'm going to do it. Like this, and that's it. Okay, just put it in, and just push that in. Once that is in, you could now slide this in. Now, slide it as far as the charging hole lines up with this hole, still holding it with your fingers. Slide the charging handle in. Okay. Now, you need to test out if everything's working. First, is it safe working? Yes, it's safe is in. Trigger's moving, it does not. And now you're going to check to see if the hammer fires. Now you're not in safe. Hey, it works. Let's check the magazine. It works. Locks in. So, now that completes the disassembly and reassembly of the bolt and the FCG. Now if you want to go a little bit further, you can. And what you would do is you could disassemble this magazine. Now it's not recommended you disassemble a magazine, but should you for some reason have broken the spring and you need to disassemble this, then what you would do is it's quite simple, is that you need to pull these tabs up. Now be very gentle, okay, and just little by little, just gentle, just push it like that. Okay, like I said, it's not recommended you disassemble the magazine, but just in case you have to, okay, because you broke a spring and you need to replace the spring, okay, then you have to. Okay, now you just pull that tab gently up little by little, and then you got this flap on the bottom, which is the base, and that also you need to now put your finger on it as you're gently pulling that up, okay, because you know it's under spring tension, and this spring, as you can see, is starting to come up. So I'm just gonna hold on to that spring with my finger and gently pull this tab with my finger like this, just gently. You don't have to use a lot of force. Now, there you go. Now the spring is out. Okay, so now here it comes. All right, and this spring is about 4.5 inches long. It's quite thin spring, and if it goes back this direction. In other words, this part is the front. Okay. Next thing I can disassemble is removing this barrel nut. And to do that, it's quite simple. You just push this. That's all it is. Mark where it is right now, because obviously it's been zeroed, and I see it's lined up with the right side. So, and it's by finger. You can actually push that out, and that's when you can remove the barrel nut. Oh, there's one more thing about the magazine. How to remove the spring. You just basically raise the back side, the downside, and then push it forward. That's all it is. It's like that. And the whole pin should actually slide up like that. Okay, and to put it back is very simple. It's just the reverse. Nothing too complicated about that. Okay. Okay, and then make sure this part is turned downwards. Okay, so the hook at the bottom goes into the tiny little hole that's in the magazine. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to reassemble the magazine for you, and if you remember, this part where the spring is goes to the front. Okay, so you have to slide it back in like this, like that. There's only one way to actually put it back, so you can't make a mistake. Okay, so just push it all the way down. All right, and continue to push it all the way down and hold it in like this, and start to push this flap down, and then make sure the spring is in place properly and not bent out of shape. So, oh, see, it's starting to come back out. So push it back in like this. Make sure it's seated properly, like that. And then push it in, push the flap in. And then make sure, use a screwdriver, make sure it goes all the way back, actually all the way to the front. Okay, and then press it all the way down. And then the same thing with the flap. Do gently, right? And if you have to use a screwdriver to help you, then just gently put it back. Now, you can only do this maybe a couple of times, then after that, I think these tabs will, and the flap will probably break. Okay, so that's basically about it. I'll try it, make sure everything works. And it does. To remove the rear sight, you need a slotted screwdriver and basically unscrew the back of the receiver like this. And that's the screw, and this is the double aperture. This aperture looks like about 2.5 millimeter or 2 millimeter, and this one is about 1. And this metal part basically allows you to adjust the vertical part. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Just put it back, just screw it right back. Pretty simple. There's not a whole lot you need to do about that. Yeah, that's basically it. The full Monty, all done to the Henry US Survival AR-7. Thank you very much for joining me, and please subscribe.